And I think it is about time to get started. Hey, welcome to AtTheTrack.live. I am Coach James. I am the creator and lead instructor for All About Aerodynamics. And as I always say, what is All About Aerodynamics? Glad you asked, even if you didn't ask. All About Aerodynamics is a science program where I use Hot Wheels cars to teach kindergarten through 6th grade students about physics, about aerodynamics, about drag, about lift, about Isaac Newton and his 3 laws of motion, about kinetic energy, about potential energy, about elastic energy, about a whole range of science and physics related topics. After I have taught them the science, after we have conducted experiments, then I bring in about 400 different Hot Wheels cars and each student selects a Hot Wheels car that they think would be fastest in a series of races. And then we have the series of races. We have a tournament. We set up our 1/4 mile, let me rephrase that. It's a 1/64th scale 1/4 mile track, so about just over 20 feet. And we have a tournament, and the students race their cars, and they observe and take note of how their cars perform. Did their cars perform up to or below their expectations? And in the end, if they had the opportunity, would they select that car again? Or would they make a different choice based on the what they observed with regard to how their car performed? So, in the end, we're using the scientific method. We're learning about physics. We're learning about a range of science topics, but we're also using Hot Wheels cars. And who doesn't have fun with Hot Wheels cars? Well, All About Aerodynamics created AtTheTrack.live because I have to introduce more Hot Wheels cars into the mix so that the students have a broader range of cars to choose from. And I like to have a mix of cars, all different types of cars, so that when the students are looking at the cars, they have to actually put some thought into why they're selecting the car that they're choosing. What is it about this particular car? What about the design, the shape makes them think that this car will in fact be faster than some other car? And in order to introduce more cars for the students to pick from, I have to do some work behind the scenes, because I have to make sure that all of the cars that I take to a school or all of the cars that I'm bringing back from a school, I have to make sure that I know where the cars go so I can find them easily and quickly when it's time to pass them out to the students. And in order to do that, I have to enter every car into a spreadsheet. I have to number the car. I have to get the car's name. I have to get some other information about the car, so that I can organize the cars in a way that makes it more efficient for me to take certain cars to certain schools and use with certain classes. The problem is doing that is boring, and at least it was boring until I came up with the idea for AtTheTrack.live. So what is AtTheTrack.live? If you have never seen an episode of AtTheTrack.live, AtTheTrack.live is where I introduce new cars into the All About Aerodynamics fleet. And each week, I go into my storage that's full of unopened Hot Wheels cars. I pull out 6, and we crack those open, take a look. I take a picture, shoot a quick video, enter the information into the spreadsheet, and after I've done that, then I can take those cars out to the track, and we have a little mini tournament to see which car is, in fact, the fastest. But wait, there's more. AtTheTrack.live if I was just doing that, then I wouldn't need to make it live. But why is it live? It's live because you have an opportunity to participate. And if you go to AtTheTrack.live and you have two options at the top, there's the Twitch stream link and the YouTube stream link, which you don't need because you're already watching. But there's a third option, and that third option says choose a car. If you select that, you will be taken to this page. And on this page, you will see all of the cars in the All About Aerodynamics At The Track Live fleet. And at last count, let me see, because I do have the spreadsheet here, there are a total of 651 different cars listed here. So you can scroll through, take a look at those cars. There are a lot of cars, and I've suggested to people that they look through the cars during the week, and then by the time we get to Saturday and At The Track Live, you already know which car you want to pick, even though you don't know the 6 cars that I'm going to introduce this week. So you're really picking a car that you think would be fast, and also a car that you think might have a shot at being faster than our current fastest in fleet car, our champion. And we'll get to that car in just a moment. But let's say you decide car number 519, the Fast Master. That's the car that you think has the stuff to become the champion. All you need to do is click on that car, and once you do that, you will see a close-up picture, and you can take a look. You can check out the wheels. You can check out whether it's a metal body on a plastic base or a plastic body on a metal base. You can see the reflection, so you can see the underside of the car. And if this is the car that you think would be faster than whichever car I happen to crack open, then all you have to do is take the number of that car, in this case 519. You can drop it into the chat. I will go and pull that car, and we will enter it into the tournament with the 6 new cars, and we will see. And if by chance the car that you select is faster than the other 6 cars, you will get a shot at facing our fastest in fleet car. And that is this one right here, the Draftnator. The Draftnator has been dominating its competition for the last at least month plus. It's had a few close races, but in general, the Draftnator has been destroying every car that's come up against it. And if there is going to be, because odds are that there is a car out of that 651, the group of 651 cars, actually 650, because we're not counting the Draftnator. So of those 650 cars that are in the fleet that are listed on our website, statistically speaking, there should be one that is faster than the Draftnator. But until we find that car, until you pick that car, the Draftnator is the champ. And we will see today if any of the cars that I have brought out have what it takes to beat the Draftnator. So let's go ahead and jump into it, because I'm kind of excited. We had last week the Buzz Lightyear car, and let me see, it was this one, and this was from the Buzz Lightyear movie that came out a year, 2 or 3, I don't know. It came out a while back, but not a long time ago. But then there was a Toy Story Buzz Lightyear car, one that was more themed around the Toy Story character. And let me see which number is that. And this is the good thing about having the spreadsheet, because, as I mentioned, Squarespace is the company that I use to 208 that I use to host the website. And when you go to the car page, I should, for example, be able to type in here Buzz Lightyear, and it comes up, but it won't. And they haven't fixed their search function, so it's a good thing I have the spreadsheet, so I can just scroll on down to 208, and this is the Buzz Lightyear car that is clearly themed around the Toy Story character. So I had that one already in the fleet, and it's kind of popular because, again, the character cars, some of the students, especially the younger ones, can't help themselves, and they gravitate toward the character car as opposed to choosing a car based on some of the scientific principles that we've discussed. Although this isn't necessarily a bad choice, but this is that car. And then, like I said, we had the one from last week, which is this one. This was also the Buzz Lightyear car from the movie. But when I was opening that car, I noticed that it showed the other cars related to the movie on the back, and I saw one that I thought kind of like that, and I went online and looked the car up, and I found it online being sold for about $10, which, $10 for one Hot Wheels car, it better be special. But then as I kept looking around, I saw that someone was offering a set for less. So I figured, okay, I will go with that. I'll go with the set. And it turns out that was a good idea, because the set right here was being sold for $12. So it ended up being about $1 or $2 more than the other. So that's what I went with. And I'm going to try something, because I see that, I shouldn't try these live adjustments, but I'm going to try it. No. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'm not. I was going to try and make a technical adjustment live, but nah, that doesn't, it's not a good idea. So we will move ahead and forge ahead, and I'll just have to correct the technical issues a little later. So, back to the story. In this group of cars, you can see there's multiple characters, but there's another Buzz Lightyear car. So I ended up with a total of 5 cars, but I only want the one, and the other ones look too big and bulky to even fit. But this is going to be one of our cars for today. So I am going to crack open this box. Let's see. Haven't opened these up. So you open it up, and there is, let me remove the logo. See, there's the box. I haven't seen the movie, so I know Buzz Lightyear, but then there's Izzy Hawthorne, Sox the cat, Zurg the alien, and Cyclops the robot. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. Oh, I just pull this off, and here the cars are right here. So the only one that I really wanted was the Buzz Lightyear car right here. So let's pull that out, set that aside. And then all of these others are pretty big and bulky, and I don't think I don't know that they would fit on the track. They're kind of these space off-road vehicles. I mean, there's a lot of detail, and it's cool, and I'm sure that some student will select one of these cars as a prize. So cars that either don't fit on the track or cars that are duplicates, I usually make those available to students as prize cars. And here's one. It's a cat theme. I'll check and see if any of these, for example, if this one actually fits in the launching chamber on the launcher, then it can stick around and possibly make its way into the fleet later. But for right now, the only car, and then there's another, this robot, the Cyclops. It's not, we still haven't had a car with these off-road style tires do well. That might change today, but it won't be the Cyclops, and it definitely won't be this huge, whatever this is, this monstrosity. Excuse me. So, won't be that one. But we will see what we can do. All right, so let's take a look at the first car that is going to be entered into the spreadsheet. So this one is on the car. It says Space Ranger Alpha Buzz, and so that is going to help differentiate it a little bit from the standard Buzz Lightyear car. Let me get this in here. And turn it around just a bit. Okay, let's take a look at this one. So here we go. The Buzz Lightyear Alpha. Let me switch over to get the video first. Lock the focus in. And start to get that video. Okay, so what did let's see, Space Ranger Alpha Buzz. And when I saw this car last week, the reason I picked it is because aside from the Toy Story theme of the car and the Buzz Lightyear theme of the car, aerodynamically, it's a solid pick to probably do well on the track. And I like the lines, I like the shape of it, and I always want to take a look at the back of the car because I see this, it's got this black fin in the back sticking out, and if that is the only point of contact with the launching block, that's not going to be good. However, I think that green, I don't know if it was the exhaust at the bottom, I think that sticks out just as much as that fin, so it might actually have 2 points of contact, which is a good thing. Space Ranger Alpha Buzz, and I believe that the year was, on that one, was 2021. And now let's get a still picture, because there is an online version of All About Aerodynamics, and with that version, the students obviously aren't going to be able to see the car in person, so I want to get a good still picture so that they can get a pretty accurate sense of what their car looks like. So lock in the focus again. And get everything lined up. Back this out just a bit. 1.6. because that reflection is actually, it's kind of important, because as we talk about the cars, and they're typically either plastic on metal or metal on plastic, and in certain cases that makes a difference, and that will lead a student to make a particular choice. So I want to be sure that they can get all of the visual information that they need to make a solid choice. So I think that's pretty good right there. We've got this car, the Space Ranger Alpha Buzz Lightyear, and I was able to get that. So this is what I'm talking about right here. Let me just kind of lock the focus in. See how well, there we go. That fin in the back, is it sticking? It looks like perhaps the exhaust is sticking out a little further than the fin, and if that's the case, then that means that is the part of the car that will be touching the launching block, and it's still not, it's not ideal, because it's a little curved, and it just doesn't, well, a flat back edge would be better. So for example, if that green part, if it was flat and went all the way across instead of having that slight curve to it, I would be more likely to think that this car would do particularly well, but that may be enough. That may be enough. Let's see how much this car weighs, and then we'll know a little more. So it weighs 33.2 grams, and just for the sake of comparison, the Draftnator weighs 32.1 grams. So not a huge difference in the weights. So we will find out if, in fact, the Space Ranger Alpha Buzz, is that Space Ranger Alpha Buzz car, can make a run for the run at the title. Okay, what else do we have here? I mentioned earlier that we have not had a car with the off-road tires do well, and so I'm still searching for that car, and there's a reason why that's the case, but this is one. I know I have multiple versions of this because they do a really good job in coming up with new looks and paint schemes, and that always appeal to me, and I don't remember exactly which of these is my favorite, but this is the one that I came across when I was looking through the storage. So this is the one that is going to be introduced into the fleet. This is the Bel-Air Bel-Air, and we will take a look. What's it say on the back? This Chevy's roll bar, off-road tires and lights make it lifted and ready to fly over the toughest terrain. Well, it can fly over the toughest terrain, but can it make it down our track quickly enough to possibly challenge the Draftnator? We'll see. So let's crack this open and take a closer look. Okay, we've got the Bel-Air Bel-Air. It's got a lot of little decals and details in the decals all over it, and I like that, because sometimes we get the Hot Wheels cars where it's just a pretty basic look, but in some cases, like with this Bel-Air Bel-Air, a lot of time and attention is put into giving it a unique look. And I actually met a Hot Wheels designer at an event at the Mattel Hot Wheels headquarters last year, and he was telling me about the process of going through, and his job is, once the car is designed, is he has to come up with different looks for the car, because if you notice the Hot Wheels cars, they don't just make one version of a car. Typically there will be multiple versions, and so he had to come up with different designs and styles and looks for each car, and that was his job, and it was pretty interesting. So let's take a look at this Big Air Bel-Air right here, and that's a good, we'll turn it just a little more. Good solid 3/4 view. Lock in the focus. And that looks, let me turn this just a bit, right there, center it up. And we've got our picture, and now we just need to get some video. Lock in the focus once again. And I'm hoping, I think of all the cars that we've had that have had the off-road tires, most of those have been trucks, and this is, even though this is a car, it's still a pretty big, kind of bulky car, but it's a car nonetheless, and we will see if this car has what it takes to get down the track quickly. Now I noticed that the front window area is open. There's no plastic, there's no windshield, but by the same token, there's no back windshield, so perhaps that will allow the air to just flow right on through the cabin area, and this car might do well on the track. Well, it is number 653. It is the Big Air Bel-Air. And yeah, this is what year is this car? 1956, a 56 Bel-Air. And I didn't get the year off of the bottom, which is just another thing to track. And who knows, this, I don't know, there's no reason for me to think this car would be faster than the Draftnator, but I think at some point I've got to be able to find the fastest car with off-road tires, and I may at some point need to build and design a new launcher specifically for wider cars, because basically all of the trucks that I have, most of them, even though the Draftnator is a truck, it's a drag truck, but most of the trucks that I have cannot fit in the launch channel, and so they can't race. But even though I know that, I still buy trucks. I have a lot of trucks, and a lot of trucks that I really want to see race. So that will require some adjustments and re-engineering of the system that I currently have. All right, this one was 2019. Let's see how much it weighs. It weighs in at 35.4 grams. So it's heavier than the Draftnator, heavier than the Buzz Lightyear car, but not by much. Not by much. We've had trucks and cars that have been much, much heavier, but we'll see how it performs. Okay, next up is, let's see, we're going to go with a car that I picked up at the Hot Wheels swap meet in Pasadena, which is, I believe it's going on right now, and if I wasn't here, then I would probably be there looking for even more Hot Wheels cars. And it also occurs, I think, 2 weeks from now, so on a Sunday, so I'll probably be at that one. But this is a car that I picked up, and it's great because if you're if you're looking for exclusive cars and rare Hot Wheels cars, there's people to trade with. There are people who, collectors who have incredible collections and displays. And if you have enough money, you can get the car that you're looking for. Somebody has it or knows someone who has it or can help you track it down. So it's a really good time with a lot of people who are enthusiastic about Hot Wheels. And the last time I was there, when I'm there, I'm usually looking for late 90s cars, because the 90s was a period of time when I wasn't collecting Hot Wheels cars. And so there's a big gap in my collection, and I like to fill it in with some of these unique cars from the late 90s. This is not one. This is from 2007, but it is one that I picked up at the swap meet. And this is the Pony Up. And I guess I need to check with certain cars. I need to check to make sure that I don't already have one in the fleet. N-O-P-O, I do not. I have the Pontiac, but that is it. So the Pony Up gets to enter the fleet and gets to be car number 654. So let's crack this open and take a look. Okay, now this car appears to be metal on metal, which should make it a little heavier. Let me check the weight right off the bat. Yep, 43.8 grams. So it's definitely a heavier car, and heavy cars just don't tend to fare as well on the track. Not that they can't do well, but typically they don't do well. So let's go ahead and shoot the video first. And we will enter this in. This is car number 654, and it is the Pony Up. So I'm always looking at the back end of the car, because that really kind of determines the type of launch that the car is going to get. Is it going to get a good launch? Is it going to get a bad launch? I see they're kind of taking different elements, because it almost, as it comes around, I can look at it and kind of see a little bit of Mustang. I can see some Shelby Cobra in there, just a kind of mashup of different cars that we've seen in the real world. But again, looking at that back end, it curves a little bit, and the reason why a flat back end is better is because when the car gets pushed out of that launcher with so much force, it is going to, the thing that's going to determine how well it does is whether or not the car stays straight on the track. Cars that do not have flat back ends can get kind of strange pushes, and they might get pushed off to the right, pushed off to the left. If that happens, they're going to hit the side of the track, and they are going to ultimately start bouncing back and forth, and every time they hit one side of the track, there's a little bit of friction, and then they bounce to the other side. It's a little more friction, and that friction only serves to slow the cars down, and that is not what you want or need. So I think part of the Draftnator's success is it gets really good launches and stays straight on the track. And if you look, the Draftnator has a flat back end, so it kind of lends to my theory that is one of the key things you should be looking for.
I couldn't find anything.
What? I didn't want anything from my Apple personal assistant. I don't want to say the name because it will come back and open up. Don't do that. All right. Let's see. Oh, there we go. All right. Let's lock this in here. And I think it's a pretty good view. Let's see. Right there. And yeah, that will do. Although it's a little, I should have something with a little more contrast so you can see, the students can see the difference between with that blue background. It's a little hard. Let me see if this helps. Let's slide this in. Yeah, I think that'll be, it's a little better for this particular car because then they can see, actually get a good look at the edges. And that's good. All right, take that picture. That is the Pony Up. So let me check the year on this one. The year is 2001. So the package says 2007. The actual, there's a little card on the back of the car that has a little file card that says 2002. And then, but the packaging says 2007. It says that the car was designed and created in 2002, and on the bottom of the car it has 2001. I always go with the information that's on the bottom of the car, just because that is the information that the students are going to use and to help identify the car, and in the event that they need to, well, they do, and they enter information about the car that they pick into their own spreadsheet and keep track of the car's performance. And so that is the information that we use, the information that's on the bottom of the car. So we have 3 cars so far, 3 up, 3 more to go. And just a reminder, if you want to get in on this action, if you say, you know what, I think I can pick a car that is faster than the Big Air Bel-Air, faster than that heavy Pony Up, and faster than the Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Alpha Buzz. If you think that you can pick cars faster than that, all you have to do is go to AtTheTrack.live and you select choose a car. When you select choose a car, it will take you to this page. And on this page, you will have the opportunity to look at all of the cars currently in our fleet, which is 650. And out of that 650, you might see one and say, you know what, I think that this one, 2 Jets with a Z, I think 2 Jets is faster than the Pony Up, the Big Air Bel-Air, and Space Ranger Alpha Buzz. Maybe that's what you think. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're wrong. But if this is what you think, all you have to do is take the number of the car, in this case 286. You take that number, you drop it in the chat, and then from that point, you can enter our tournament, and you can have a shot at taking on the Draftnator. But we have 3 more cars that are going to be introduced, and let's see, we have we'll go with a smaller car. This one is the Mazda RX-3, and so let's crack this open and take a look. that out of the way because we don't need anything for the contrast. And let's go ahead and take a look at this one. Okay, so we have the Mazda RX-3, and I will go ahead and get the still picture, get that out of the way. Just a bit. That looks good. Go here. And get the still picture. And now just need to shoot the video. Get this turning. Lock in the focus. And so, of course, as I say every time, the thing I'm looking at is the back end of the car. And this one has a flat back end, so that's a plus. It's a smaller car, so I'm going to presume that the weight is at least in line with the Draftnator and the Space Ranger Buzz car. So we will see if that makes a difference out on the track. Mazda RX-3, and I didn't check the year on that yet, but it should. Smaller cars, it's sort of a mix. They tend to be faster, but they're also more volatile in that they can really bounce around the track. Ideally, a tip, at least on our track, is a car with a wider car with a flat back end is a good bet to do well on the track. The wider cars tend not to have as much play when they go down the track if they hit one side or the other. So this is the Mazda RX-3. And let me go ahead and see how much this actually weighs. This is 33.8 grams. So it's a metal body on a plastic base. So it is not the lightest car, but it's definitely not the heaviest, and not the heaviest that we have seen today. So let me double check the year on this. Okay, so 2015, and there we go. All right, we have, let's see, 2 more cars to introduce, and one of these I pulled out of the storage has been sitting around for quite some time. The Toyota 2000 GT, and this was a special edition with the cars that they colored for the Olympics in 2020. And so that's what you'll see in terms of the decals on the car. So let's crack this open and take a look. Okay, let's go ahead and check this out. Here we go. We have the Toyota, and get that video going. 2000 GT. This is car number 656. The Toyota 2000 GT, and I think this one, if I had to guess between this one and the Pony Up, I would take this car just because the Pony Up is heavier. But in this car, it looks to be a little narrow. And again, wider cars tend to do better. And I think at this point, that Buzz Alpha, Space Ranger Alpha Buzz car has a pretty good shot at winning today's tournament, I think, presuming it can stay straight. I'm not sure about that sort of curved exhaust that is going to be the point of the car that touches the launcher. I'm not sure what kind of movement is going to happen once the car actually launches, but if I had to pick as of right now, my money would be on that Space Ranger Alpha Buzz car. All right, got that. Now let's just get the still picture here. And zoom in a bit. Lock the focus. And there we go. All right, so we have the 2000, or the Toyota 2000 GT, and the year on this is 2011. So get that entered in right here, 2011. And we have one more car today to enter into the fleet. And it just so happens that it fell in line with the theme. So there's a store. I don't know. I guess it's national, but I know that here in the LA area, there are at least two that I know of, and it's called Book Off. And they sell used books, but they also sell used CDs and toys and collectibles and a whole range of things. So anytime that I go into one of the stores, it's always a different assortment of things, because it just depends on what people brought in to trade or resell. And so sometimes they have Hot Wheels, and I've gotten some there in the past, but the trade-off is that yes, you can find some Hot Wheels cars, but they just price them seemingly based on nothing at all, or the highest eBay listing they can find, because there will be basic Hot Wheels cars for $7, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So I take a look and see what they have. Well, they had these. They had there's a Toy Story 4, so it fell in line with, I knew that Buzz Lightyear car was going to be introduced. So then when I saw these, I was like, oh, there's a whole series of Toy Story cars. And one of them was this one. This wasn't necessarily the one that I wanted, that I was interested in, this Duke Kaboom. And again, I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know anything about this character, but this was the car that they had, and they had it priced for $3, which, considering most of their others were $7, this wasn't bad. So this wasn't the one I wanted. The one I wanted was this little weird thing, Forky, but it's like a drag. It's a spork, and so I'm, again, a character from a movie I haven't seen, but it was an interesting little drag car. The problem was there was no price tag on this. So what I didn't want to happen is I take this up to the front, and they're like, oh, Hot Wheels, we $7. Didn't want that to happen. So I picked up this one that was already marked at $3, hoping that if I just took them up there together, even though this one didn't have a price listed on it, they would just say, oh, well, they're both Toy Story 4 cars. If this one's $3, if this one's $3, this one must be $3. And that is exactly what happened. So this Duke Kaboom, it's an interesting car. I don't know, again, if it's going to be too wide to fit onto the into the launch channel, but it's possible. So I will check that at some other point. But this is the car that is going to be introduced into the fleet today, Forky. So let's go ahead and crack this open, take a look. There's also the Buzz Lightyear car that, in part of it's you can't see because it's green. There's a green screen, but this Buzz Lightyear car is the one that's already in the fleet. So I do, and as a matter of fact, I think this Rex, which again is green, so you can't see it, is also in the fleet. But let's see what this one. Take a closer look at this. Okay, so here we have Forky, and it's an all-metal car, and it feels a little heavy. Let me see what it weighs. Not really, 32.9 grams. And let's go ahead and take a look at this. Lock into focus. There we go. So Forky, and it's again, I'm not really, since I haven't seen the movie, I'm presuming that a lot of the things that are on this car will be familiar to people who have seen the movie, but I haven't, so I'm just going to take it as just another fantasy casting, and it looks like it may have a shot. I'm gonna, of course, have to look at the back end, but let's take a look as it comes around here. And get this. So Forky is car number 657, and see here, I didn't check the year, but again, I'm looking at the back end and the edges of that spork. If they're even, then that'll be fine in terms of getting a good launch, but it looks like the one on the far right and left may stick out a little bit more than the two in the middle, and that could play a role in how this car performs and what kind of a launch it gets. Not sure. And then I'm looking at the front with the open wheels, and we've had a couple of other cars, the Mustache and then the Rocket Oil Special, that had open wheels, and by the time those cars were finished on our track, those wheels and those axles were bent, and the cars had kind of a weird, in some cases couldn't be used, and I had to actually replace the cars. So we'll see how this one does with its open wheels. I'd feel better if there was something coming down sort of protecting the front of the wheel, like if this blue part came down and protected the wheel in some way, I would be more confident, but that is not the case, and this is the way the car is, and it's how it is going to race. So all I need to do is get the year from this one, and the year is 20, is that an 18 or a 16? 2018. Okay. So put that in here. 2018. Nice. Okay. 657 cars with our new 6 introduced today. We have Forky. We have the Toyota, what was it? The the 2000 GT. We have the Mazda RX-3, the Pony Up. We have the Big Air Bel-Air, and we have the Space Ranger Alpha Buzz car. And then all of those cars will be competing to see which of the cars can take on the Draftnator for the fastest in fleet championship designation. So that is what we are going to do. We're going to head over to the track, race these cars, and see which one comes out on top. But of course, if you are new to At the Track Live, let me just quickly explain what you will see when we go to the track. We have a 3-camera view of our track, and the races will start in the screen on the far left at the top. I will give a countdown, 3, 2, 1, race. The cars will come flying out of the launcher. They will come from top to bottom, so they will race towards the bottom of that first screen. After they pass out of the bottom of the first screen, you will be able to see them at the top of the center screen, the middle section of our track. The cars will come racing from top to bottom. After they pass out of the bottom of the middle section of our screen, you will pick them up at the top of the third screen, which is our finish line camera. The cars will come flying across the finish line, and our finish line indicator will flash a solid red light. It will display a solid red light for the winning car and a flashing red light for the losing car. So solid red light, winning car, flashing red light is the losing car. Additionally, the races are best 2 out of 3, and we will change lanes after each race so that no car has any particular advantage, if there is some advantage to be gained out of one lane or the other. And if a car crashes, then the race restarts. If a car crashes twice consecutively, that car is eliminated and the racing continues. And the reason for that is because if a car crashes twice consecutively, then in all likelihood there's something wrong with the launch that it's getting, the design of the car, and simply rerunning the races over and over again isn't likely to correct that problem. Whereas sometimes cars just get a bad launch, they crash, but then they come back and perform perfectly well on the track. So there is nothing left to do except grab these cars and head over to the track. So that is what I am going to do. So I will see you over at the track in about 30 seconds. Okay, got all the cars. I just want to test the, check the audio, double check it rather. Make sure we're good. The sound, 1, 2, yep. Okay, so here we go. We are going to see if any of these cars can challenge the Draftnator for all about aerodynamics at the track live supremacy, and that is going to begin with, let's see, which cars are going to start off today. How about we go with, we'll go with the Pony Up, and we'll go Pony Up and the Toyota 2000 GT. So let's get those lined up right here. and see what today's set of races. Woo! Woo. Almost caught my finger in almost caught my finger in there. This launcher is serious, and this is why we get the speeds that we get from these cars, because I designed this launcher specifically with speed in mind, because the faster the cars are moving, the easier it is to observe many of the aerodynamics principles that we discuss in All About Aerodynamics. So here we go. We've got the Toyota in lane 2. We've got the Pony Up in lane 1. This is race 1. Let's see what happens. Three, two, one, race. Okay, the Toyota took it, as indicated by the solid red light, but that race wasn't so close that it came down to having to use the light to help us figure out which car won. So that is race number 1. We will switch lanes, line these cars up again, and see if the Pony Up can come back and force a third race. Get these cars lined up again. We've got I keep doing that. All right, here we go. Get the Pony Up is now in lane number 2, and the Toyota is in lane number 1. Okay, Toyota's up 1 race to none. Let's see what happens. 3, 2, 1, race. And the Pony Up took it. And one thing that I noticed is that the Pony Up is a heavier car, as we already indicated. But on the track, the race was pretty close at the beginning. And when by the time the cars get to the last section of the track, that last third, the Pony Up, the heavier car, started to slow down. And that's typical of what we see with the heavier cars, is that towards the back end of the track, they start to slow down, and the lighter cars continue on at a higher rate of speed past them, and that's that. Okay, so let's go with this Forky versus the Big Air Bel-Air. Or no, yeah, I mean, the cars are going to have to race each other anyway. All right, we're going Forky versus Big Air Bel-Air. Can we finally get a car with the off-road tires to do well on our track? I do not know, but we're going to find out. We've got the Big Air Bel-Air lined up in lane 2. We're going to come with Forky in lane number 1. And this will be, there's definitely going to be a contrast in size, shape, and style. But here we go. All right, so Forky's in lane 1. The Big Air Bel-Air is in lane 2. Race number 1. Let's see what happens. Okay, so the Big Air Bel-Air has these lights on the roof of the car, and they stick up just enough that I am going to have to switch over to the larger acrylic cover for the track. I use this to ensure that the cars actually stay on the track and don't launch up into the air, but there is a larger version that I have to use for taller cars, and so I'm bringing out the larger version. And so now we will have race number 1. Here we go. Forky, lane 1, Big Air, Bel-Air, lane 2. 3, 2, 1, race. And Forky made it all the way down. The Bel-Air Bel-Air, however, crashed into the first barrier. So let's go ahead and get these lined up again, because if a car crashes once, we just restart the race. And this Bel-Air Bel-Air, the Bel-Air, it caught some big air as it crashed and flipped up into the sky. So let me go and get another. Let's get this here. Pick up Forky. Come back. Line these up again. Now, if the Bel-Air Bel-Air crashes again, then it is disqualified. And it's interesting because it's not, if it didn't have the lights on the top, then it would be fine to go down the track, but it does have the lights, and therefore it needs the taller acrylic cover, which probably isn't doing it any favors because well, for a number of reasons, but let's see what happens. Got them lined up again. Bel-Air Bel-Air in lane 2, Forky in lane 1. If the Bel-Air Bel-Air crashes, it's eliminated, and we move on. Here we go. Three, 2, 1, race. So the Bel-Air Bel-Air, it's interesting. Had it crashed, it crashed, but it didn't leave the track. So, because it didn't leave the track, it lost the race, but it didn't get disqualified. Forky went down. Forky got the victory. So the good news for the Bel-Air Bel-Air is it can race again in this next race, because once again, when I say if a car crashes, that is, I need to be more specific. If a car crashes and leaves the track. If a car crashes but doesn't leave the track, then it's just lost the race. It is not eligible to be disqualified. So let's get these cars lined up again for race number 2. So Forky will be in lane number 2, and the Bel-Air Bel-Air will be in lane 1. So the question this time around is, can the Bel-Air Bel-Air even make it down the track? That would be, at this point, seems like that would be a victory for that car. So Bel-Air Bel-Air lane 1, Forky lane 2, and let's see what happens. Three, 2, 1, race. Oh. Okay, so the Bel-Air Bel-Air stayed on the track. It had a pretty good run, still lost, and is still eliminated because that is the second race that it lost. So, Bel-Air Bel-Air, at least it stayed on the track. That's a victory. The race was kind of competitive, at least from my vantage point at the start line, and we will be moving on. So Forky doesn't seem all that fast, especially for a drag car, but let me make sure the finish line, the sensors got a little bit thrown off there with that during that last race. So I just want to make sure everything is lined up, because even though we didn't need to refer to the sensors to make sure that to see which car won, that might not be the case in our upcoming race. which will be the Space Ranger Alpha Buzz versus the Mazda RX-3. So let's get these lined up and see if I'm going to get my money's worth in terms of that Space Ranger Alpha Buzz car. As I mentioned, there was one pack, or there was one listing that had the car listed at about $10, and then another listing for $11 where I could just buy the whole set. So I bought the whole set in order to get this one car, and we will find out shortly if it was worth it. Okay, so here we go. We've got Space Ranger Alpha Buzz in lane 2. We have the Mazda RX-3 in lane 1. Let's see what happens. Three, two, one, race. Okay, so Space Ranger Alpha was beaten by the Mazda quite convincingly. I think that the Buzz Lightyear car, the Space Ranger Alpha Buzz, I don't think that it got the best launch, which is something I said I was concerned about based on the point of contact that it had with the launching block. And after it launched out, I think it sounded like it kind of clipped the first barrier just a little bit. I just heard a sound, and it definitely bumped against something, but it still lost the race. And now we will change sides, and we will see if Space Ranger Alpha Buzz can in fact redeem itself and justify my $11 expenditure. So here we go, versus the Mad Mike Mazda RX-3. Okay, so the Mazda is in lane 2 and Space Ranger Alpha Buzz is in lane 1. Let's see what happens. Three, two, one, race. Oh. Space Ranger Alpha Buzz comes through and takes the race. So that was closer, and I don't think before when I said that it bumped the brushed up against the barrier in the first race, there was no such impediment this time, and Space Ranger Alpha Buzz has forced a third race, so the cars will switch lanes once again, and we will see what kind of outcome we get. And Space Ranger Alpha Buzz in lane number 1. Oh, no. Take that back. Space Ranger Alpha Buzz is back in lane number 2. And we have the Mazda RX-3 in lane number 1. Okay. All right, here we go. Third and final race. Whichever car takes this moves on. Here we go. Three, two, one, race. Wow. Okay. That was talking about bad launches. The Alpha Buzz clearly got a bad launch, but it made it down the track, and therefore it gets no there are no redos. The only redo will be if someone picks this car in the future and we line it up and race it again. But as it stands right now, the Alpha Buzz, Space Ranger Alpha Buzz car is eliminated, and we are down to 3. We have got Forky, we've got the Toyota, and we have the Mazda. So let's go with the Mazda against Forky, see what happens. Okay, so we'll put the Mazda in lane number 2. And we will put Forky in lane number 1. Gotta make an adjustment. Alright, so Forky in lane 1, Mazda in lane 2, presuming I can get the car to stay in place. Alright, here we go. Race number 1, Forky versus the Mazda RX-3. Three, two, one, race. Wow. Okay. The Mazda is quick, and I think the Draftnator may have some competition, possibly, but we're not there yet. There are still more races to go. The cars are going to switch lanes, and we will see if Forky can force a third race. That is what Alpha Buzz, Space Ranger Alpha Buzz did, forced a third race, but that margin of victory for the Mazda seemed pretty impressive. Although with Forky, it's hard to say whether or not this car is actually getting a decent, how good a launch it's getting. And when it's lined up in the launcher, as I pointed out, the teeth on the fork part of the spork press up against the launcher, but they're kind of in this cartoony style, so they're not exactly even. So all 4 of the forks are not necessarily touching the launching block, so it's getting a kind of odd push, and it seems like if it gets a good push, then it does well. If it gets a poor push, then it does poorly, which is not exactly news on this track, but that's what's happening. So here we go. Race number 2, the Mazda RX-3 is in lane 1, Forky is in lane 2. Let's see what happens. Three, two, one, race. Okay, so Forky crashed before getting destroyed in that race. So we will line these cars up again. And as I mentioned, with the open wheels, I'm hoping that the crash didn't damage Forky's wheels, which it doesn't appear to have done. So I'll line these cars up again, and we will see what happens here. Okay, let me get Forky lined up. If I can get the launcher is being kind of temperamental today, but it will be all right for the races. Let me just get Forky lined up, and then go back and retrieve the Mazda, which had no problem making it down the track. And we'll see if it can move on, or will there be a third race. So it's all up to Forky. If Forky crashes again, then Forky will be eliminated. So here we go. Let me get the Mazda lined up, and we are good to go. Here we go. Mazda lane 1, Forky lane 2. If the Mazda wins, it moves on. 3, 2, 1, race. Wow. And Forky crashed again and damaged the axle, as I feared. So that is the end of Forky's racing career. I mentioned pretty much I think it's at a point where I'm going to have to ban open-wheeled cars, because we've had, at least in the last month or so, we've had 3 of them. All 3 have, at some point, if they didn't crash into a barrier, they crashed at the end of the race, the finish line, and ultimately those repetitive bumps bent the axles. Well, Forky crashed into the barrier, and the wheel is completely bent, which I'll show once we get back to the garage. But Forky is not going to be a part of the All About Aerodynamics fleet, and that is unfortunate, but I think I'm gonna have to ban the open-wheeled cars. They don't have what it takes to survive on our track. So the finals is going to be the Toyota 2000 GT versus the Mazda. So we're going to put the Toyota in lane number 2, the Mazda in lane number 1, and here we go. This is the finals to see which of these cars is going to get the opportunity to take on the Draftnator for fastest in fleet supremacy. This is race number 1, Mazda lane 1, Toyota lane 2. Here we go. Three, 2, 1, race. Whew. Toyota takes it. So the Toyota takes race number 1, and we are now going to have to see if the Mazda can pull off a feat that is, I don't want to say it's rare, because multiple cars have done it, where a car loses the first race but then comes back and wins 2 in a row. We've seen it happen, and so it's not totally out of the realm of possibility, but the Mazda is going to need to win this race to make sure that there is, in fact, a 3rd race. So we will put the Toyota in lane number 1. We will put the Mazda in lane number 2. Get these cars lined up just right. Okay, and here we go. Race number 2. If the Toyota in lane 1, if the Toyota takes it, Toyota's the champion for today. So here we go. Three, 2, 1, race. The Toyota took it. The race was close, but the Toyota took it, and the Toyota is today's champion. So congratulations to the Toyota. You beat out the 5 other cars that were vying for this title, and now your reward is that you get to face our fastest in fleet car, the Draftnator, which I've got to make another adjustment to these cars are hitting with a lot of force. I think I'm going to need to start reinforcing the finish line camera area, and the stopper that I have at the end of the track, because cars are hitting with so much force they're jarring the sensor on the finish line monitor. Okay, so we have the Toyota 2000 GT, which is going to go up against the Draftnator. The Draftnator has been our fastest in fleet car for over a month. It has not seen too many cars that have even really given it a close run, but today might be the day. Draftnator's lined up in lane 1. The Toyota is lined up in lane number 2. And here we go. This is the first race for the fastest in fleet championship. Here we go. Draftnator lane 1, Toyota lane 2. Just have to readjust the cars because the Draftnator slid forward just a bit. Alright, cars are realigned, we're ready to go. 3, 2, 1, race. Whew. The Draftnator takes the first race, and it was interesting because toward the end, the Draftnator appeared to be slowing down a bit, and then the Toyota was gaining ground, but it ran out of track and lost the race. It couldn't catch up before it crossed the finish line. So that was race number 1. Draftnator took it. So now the Toyota is going to have to come back and do what I mentioned earlier. It's going to have to take 2 races in a row from our champion in order to take the title. And here we go. The Draftnator is lined up in lane 2. And the Toyota 2000 GT will be lined up in lane number 1. If I can, okay, oh, cars doesn't want to seem to stay in place, so we will make that adjustment. There we go. Draftnator, both cars are in place. Here we go. If the Draftnator takes it out of lane 2, the Draftnator will remain our fastest in fleet car. If the Toyota can somehow come back and make this a competitive race, we will go to a third and final race if necessary. So here we go. Three, two, one, race. And the Toyota, it pulled a Big Air Bel-Air and it crashed, but unfortunately for it, it didn't crash and leave the track. If it had crashed and left the track, then it would have the opportunity to run that race back, and we would know whether or not we would need a third race. But because it crashed and remained on the track, it is technically disqualified. Or no, it's not disqualified. It just lost. But I don't want the race to end like that, so we're going to run this back and see if we can get an actual solid race, because I don't think the Draftnator comes out once a week looking for a car to challenge it, and I don't think the Draftnator really wants to have a win on a technicality. So we're going to line these cars up again, see if the Toyota can actually beat the Draftnator down the track. We've got them lined up again. Draftnator lane 2, Toyota lane 1. Here we go. Three, two, one, race. And this time the Toyota stayed on the track and it still lost. So the Draftnator remains our fastest in fleet car, the champion. And I am going to gather these cars up, head back into the garage, and we'll take a look at today's results. So the Draftnator remains our fastest in fleet car. It was able to defeat the challenge of the Toyota 2000 GT, which I think part of the problem with that car is that it was narrow and it started to bounce around the track a bit, and that is not what you want to happen. Excuse me, especially if you are intending on staying and being competitive. You can't have a car that bounces around, because the more it bounces around, it's that friction that when it hits one side, it's Isaac Newton's third law of motion, that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. And what happens is the car starts to bounce back and forth. It hits the right, bounces off, hits the left, right, bounce, and the cars just start to wobble down the track. And you can't win like that, especially against a car that is fast and tends to stay straighter on the track, like the Draftnator. So any car that you pick, again, it's up to you. You can go to AtTheTrack.live. You can select choose a car, and when you do that, you are going to have the opportunity to look at all 656 cars and make a determination as to which car you think would perform best on the track. And I think that the first thing that I advise students and people to look at is the back end of the car. The launching block is flat surface. It's a square. So what you want is the most surface area possible pressed up against that launching block, because it will give the car a solid push and be far less likely to start fishtailing around the track and creating other problems. So that's just my advice, having observed thousands of races. But you're free to scroll through, find a car that you like, and when you find that car, all you have to do is take the number right there. So if you think this Aston Martin DBS is the car, all you have to do, you can click on it, take a closer look, but then if that's the car you want, take that number 295 and then you drop it in the chat. If there's a car that you think is fast that we don't have listed in the fleet, then you can always just go to our Instagram account, and you can send me a message there and let me know, hey, such and such car, I think that would be fast, and if I can find it at a good price, then I will order it and bring it in. We've done that in the past with some cars, and it's fun. I'm always interested in adding new cars that I don't currently have in the fleet. So if you have an idea, send a message through our Instagram account. And if you're not following all about aerodynamics or the happenings with AtTheTrack.live on Instagram, you should be, because that is where I post updates in the story, when races will be held, and other information that you might enjoy or find useful. Now, if you are interested in learning more about our science program, all about aerodynamics, all you have to do is you can find the link in the bio on our Instagram account, or you can just go directly to aaerodynamics.com, and you will find information about the program structure and the classes and the different offerings that we have, and you will find out the best way to bring all about aerodynamics to your school or your organization or your special event. And it's a great opportunity for students to learn and have fun. And when you can do both of those things, you've kind of struck gold. So until next Saturday, I am Coach James for All About Aerodynamics and At The Track Live. And until next week, I'll see you at the races.